Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked across his wheat fields. The twin suns of New Eden hung low in the sky, painting everything golden. His crops grew tall and strong, the best in 3 sectors. People said he had magic hands when it came to farming, but Jake knew it was just hard work and attention to detail. He walked along the rows of wheat, checking each plant. His boots made soft sounds in the dirt. Everything looked perfect, just the way he liked it. Jake had been farming this land for 5 years now, and every day felt the same. Wake up before sunrise, tend the crops, fix the machines, go to bed when the sun set. It was a simple life, and that was exactly what he wanted. The settlement of New Eden was small, maybe 300 people spread across the valley. Most were farmers like him, growing food to ship to the inner colonies. There was a research station on the hill where scientists studied local plants and animals. The town had 1 store, 1 bar, and 1 landing pad for supply ships. Nothing exciting ever happened here, and Jake preferred it that way. Dr. Lisa Carter arrived on the morning. Supply ship 3 weeks ago. Jake watched from his fields as she walked down the ramp carrying 2 heavy bags and a box of equipment. She was young, maybe 30, with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore the kind of clothes city people wore, all clean and pressed. Jake figured she would not last long in a place like New Eden. He was wrong about that. Lisa threw herself into her work at the research station with the kind of energy that impressed even the old-timers. She asked good questions and listened to the answers. When she needed soil samples from different farms, she did not just send an assistant. She came herself, boots getting muddy, hands dirty from digging. That was how Jake first talked to her. She showed up at his gate one morning with a small shovel and some containers. "Mr. Morrison? I am Dr. Carter from the research station. Could I take some soil samples from your fields? Your crops are so healthy, I want to see what makes the difference." Jake nodded and pointed to a section near the fence. "Help yourself, Doc. Just watch out for the irrigation lines." Lisa worked for an hour, taking samples from different spots. Jake went about his business, but he found himself watching her. She moved with purpose, like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. When she finished, she walked over to where Jake was fixing a water pump. "This is amazing work," she said, looking at the pump. "Did you modify this yourself?" Jake glanced at the pump. He had made several improvements to make it run more efficiently. "Just some small changes. Helps it work better." "Small changes?" "You have increased the flow rate by at least 30% and reduced power consumption. This is engineering-level work." Jake shrugged. "You pick things up over the years?" Lisa studied his face for a moment. "Where did you learn to do this? Kind of work?" "Here and there," Jake said, turning back to the pump. "You want some coffee? I just made a pot." They sat on Jake's porch, drinking coffee and talking about crops and weather. Lisa asked good questions about farming, but Jake noticed she also asked other questions. Where did he come from? How long had he been on New Eden? What did he do before farming? Jake gave simple answers. He came from one of the inner colonies. He had been farming for 5 years. Before that, he worked with machines. All true, but not the whole truth. Over the next few weeks, Lisa came by several more times, sometimes for soil samples, sometimes to check on how her test plants were growing in different conditions. Sometimes she just stopped by for coffee and conversation. Jake found he enjoyed talking to her. Lisa was smart and curious about everything. She asked about the weather patterns, the local animals, even the way Jake organized his work. She seemed to notice details that other people missed. "You are very efficient," she said one evening as they watched the sun set. "I have been timing your work routine. You never waste a movement. Everything has a purpose. Jake looked at her sideways. You have been timing me? Lisa blushed. Sorry. Occupational habit. I observe things for a living. But seriously, you move like someone with military training. Everyone learns to be efficient out here, Jake said carefully. Resources are limited. Maybe, Lisa said, but she did not sound convinced. Jake started noticing things about Lisa, too. She was smart, but she was also observant in ways that went beyond science. She paid attention to sounds, movements, changes in routine. When supply ships came, she watched them land with the same intensity she used to study plant samples. One day, Lisa showed up at Jake's farm looking worried. She carried a small device that beeped softly. I am picking up some strange readings, she said. Energy signatures that do not match anything we know about. They seem to be coming from the outer rim of the system. Jake set down his tools and walked over to her. What kind of readings? Electromagnetic pulses, very faint but regular, like communication signals, but not using any frequency we recognize. Lisa showed him the display on her device. I reported it to Administrator Collins, but he said it was probably just solar interference. Jake studied the readout. The patterns looked familiar, but he could not place them immediately. How long have you been detecting these? 3 days now. The signals are getting stronger. Lisa looked up at Jake. I know this sounds crazy, but I think someone is out there. Someone watching us. Jake was quiet for a long moment. What makes you think that? The timing. The signals come in bursts, always at the same time each day. That is not natural phenomena. That is intelligence. Jake handed the device back to her. Keep monitoring it. Let me know if anything changes. That night, Jake did not sleep well. He lay in bed listening to the sounds of his farm, but his mind was elsewhere. The electromagnetic readings Lisa described bothered him more than he let on. After midnight, he got up and walked to his barn. Hidden behind feed sacks and farm tools was a small panel. Jake pressed his thumb to it, and a section of the wall slid aside. Inside was a room that did not belong on any farm. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens glowing softly in the darkness. Communication equipment hummed quietly. Weapons hung in neat rows on special racks. Jake sat down at the main console and typed in a series of codes. The computers came alive, connecting to networks that did not officially exist. Data flowed across the screens, reports from sensors. Hidden throughout the system, messages from contacts light years away. The electromagnetic signals Lisa detected were not random. They were scout probes, sent by ships that moved between the stars looking for easy targets. Ships full of creatures that viewed human colonies as sources of slaves and resources. Jake had been expecting this day for 5 years. His quiet life as a farmer was about to end. He began typing orders into the computer, activating systems that had been sleeping since he arrived on New Eden. Hidden sensors across the colony came online. Weapons caches buried in his fields powered up. Communication links to distant military bases opened. Jake Morrison, the farmer, was about to disappear. Colonel Jacob Morrison was going back to work. The next morning, Jake worked in his fields as usual, but now his eyes constantly scanned the sky, and his ears listened for sounds that did not belong. When Lisa came by for her daily readings, he paid close attention to her device. The signals are much stronger today, she said, worry clear in her voice. Whatever is out there, it is getting closer. Jake nodded, his expression calm. Keep monitoring it, Doc. And Lisa? Yes? Stay close to the research station for the next few days. Just in case. Lisa looked at him sharply. Just in case of what? You never know what might happen, Jake said, turning back to his wheat. Best to be careful. High above New Eden, alien ships moved through space like hunting wolves. They had found another human colony, isolated and defenseless. Soon they would descend to take what they wanted, but they did not know that one of their targets was not what he seemed. They did not know that the quiet farmer who grew the best wheat in 3 sectors was actually one of the most dangerous humans alive. They were about to learn. The attack came at sunrise. Lisa was in the research station, checking her equipment for the daily electromagnetic readings, when the sky exploded with light. Ships appeared from nowhere, black and sleek like hunting birds. They moved too fast to be human vessels, and their design was all wrong. Angular hulls covered in weapons, engines that glowed with alien fire. The first plasma bolts hit the colony's communication tower. The structure vanished in a flash of superheated air, leaving only twisted metal and smoke. More ships dropped from orbit, their weapons lighting up the morning sky with deadly colors. Lisa ran to the window and watched in horror as the peaceful valley of New Eden became a war zone. The ships moved in perfect formation, hitting targets with surgical precision. The power station exploded in a ball of flame. The supply depot collapsed as energy beams cut through its walls. The landing pad where the morning supply ship would have arrived was now a crater of molten rock. People ran from their homes screaming in terror. Children cried for their parents. Some colonists tried to reach vehicles, but the alien ships cut them down with weapons that turned human bodies to ash in seconds. Others hid in buildings, but the aliens seemed to know exactly where everyone was. Large transport ships landed in the fields between the town and Jake's farm. Ramps dropped, and creatures emerged that Lisa had only heard about in intelligence reports. The Cathara were tall and lean, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their weapons looked like extensions of their bodies, and they moved with the fluid grace of natural predators. Lisa watched through her instruments as squads of Cathara soldiers spread through the colony. They were not just killing everyone. They were being selective. The strong and healthy were forced into groups and chained together. The old, sick, and very young were shot without hesitation. This was not a random attack. This was a slave raid. Administrator Collins tried to organize a defense, but the colony's few security guards were overwhelmed in minutes. Their weapons were meant for keeping order among farmers, not fighting an alien invasion force. Collins himself was captured while trying to reach the emergency transmitter. Lisa watched through her telescope as Cathara soldiers dragged him toward one of their ships. She tried to contact the outside universe, but all long-range communications were dead. The aliens had jammed or destroyed every transmitter in the colony. New Eden was cut off from the rest of human space. No one would know what happened here until it was too late. Lisa looked toward Jake's farm, hoping to see some sign of resistance, but the buildings looked empty. Smoke rose from several spots where plasma fire had ignited crops and equipment. She assumed Jake had fled to the hills like many other colonists. Part of her felt disappointed. The man she had grown to respect had abandoned them when they needed him most. The Cathara commander was easy to spot. He was larger than the others, with more elaborate armor and weapons. He stood in the center of the colony, directing his forces, with sharp, barking commands. His translator device converted his words into rough human speech that echoed through the settlement. "Bring me the strong ones," the commander ordered. "Separate them by age and health. The markets on Vega Prime pay well for good human slaves." But there was something else in his words that caught Lisa's attention. The commander kept asking his soldiers about military installations, weapons caches, and off-world contacts. This was not just a slave raid. They were looking for something specific. Question the leaders, the commander told his troops. Find out if there are any military assets hidden here. The intelligence reports mentioned possible defense installations in this sector. Lisa frowned. What intelligence reports? New Eden was just a farming colony. There were no military installations, no hidden weapons. The only unusual thing was the electromagnetic readings she had been detecting, and those came from outside the system. Unless they did not come from outside the system at all. As the day wore on, Lisa watched the systematic destruction of everything she had come to know. The Cathara were efficient killers, but they were also thorough searchers. They went through every building, every vehicle, every piece of equipment. They were looking for something, and they seemed frustrated that they had not found it. Dr. Peterson from the biological lab was dragged past the research station window. Lisa could hear him being questioned through the thin walls. "Where are your military contacts?" a Cathara soldier demanded. "Your colony sends regular reports to someone. We have intercepted fragments of encrypted communications." "We just send crop reports to the Agricultural Board," Peterson gasped. "There are no military contacts. We are just farmers and scientists." "Lies," the alien hissed. "Our intelligence indicates a high-value target in this sector. Someone with military training and access to advanced weapons." Lisa felt her blood turn cold. A high-value target with military training. Someone who moved with efficiency and precision. Someone who modified farm equipment with engineering skills far beyond what a simple farmer should possess. Jake Morrison was not just a farmer. As night fell, the Cathara established a camp in the center of the colony. They had rounded up about 60 colonists, chaining them in groups near their transport ships. Many others were dead, their bodies left where they fell. A few, like Lisa, remained hidden in buildings throughout the settlement. Lisa crouched in the research station's basement, monitoring what remained of her equipment. Most of the sensitive instruments had been destroyed in the initial attack, but she still had basic scanners and motion detectors. The readings showed Cathara patrols moving through the colony in regular patterns, searching for hidden survivors. But there was something else on her screens that made no sense. A single human signature moving through the alien positions like smoke. The figure appeared on her sensors for seconds at a time, always in places where Cathara guards had just gone silent. At first, Lisa thought it was a malfunction in her equipment. But as the night progressed, the pattern became clear. Someone was moving through the Cathara camp, and alien soldiers were disappearing one by one. The Cathara commander noticed it too. His angry commands echoed through the settlement as he demanded reports from guards who no longer answered their communicators. Patrols were doubled, then tripled, but still the mysterious figure moved through their lines like a ghost. "Find this human phantom!" the commander roared. "No single colonist could do this. There is a trained soldier among them." Lisa watched her instruments with growing amazement. The human signature was not running or hiding. It was hunting. Cathara. Equipment began failing throughout the camp. Communication arrays sparked and died. Vehicle engines refused to start. Weapon systems went offline without explanation. Whoever was out there knew exactly how Cathara technology worked, and they were systematically destroying it. Around midnight, Lisa detected movement outside the research station. She held her breath, expecting Cathara soldiers to break down the door. Instead, she heard a soft tapping on the window. A human voice whispered through the glass. "Doc, it is me. Open the back door." Jake Morrison stood in the shadows behind the research station, but he looked nothing like the farmer she knew. His clothes were dark and form-fitting. Weapons hung from a harness across his chest. His face was painted with black stripes, and his eyes held a cold light that made Lisa shiver. "Jake? What are you doing? How did you get here?" "No time to explain," Jake said, slipping through the door. "We need to move. The Cathara know someone is out there now. They will start searching buildings more carefully." "You are the one who has been attacking them," Lisa said. It was not a question. Jake nodded as he checked his weapons. "Among other things, how is your equipment? Can you track their patrols?" "Some of it still works." "Jake, who are you really?" Jake looked at her for a long moment. "Someone who should have told you the truth before now." "Can you use your sensors to map their positions?" Lisa turned to her instruments, her mind racing. "Yes, but Jake, there are over 100 of them. You cannot fight an entire army by yourself." "Watch me," Jake said quietly. On Lisa's screens, she could see the Cathara forces spreading out to search the colony building by building. They had learned to move in larger groups, but that just made them easier targets for someone who knew what they were doing. Jake studied the display, memorizing patrol routes and timing. They are good soldiers, but they fight like they expect an open battle. They do not understand guerrilla warfare. You talk like you have fought them before. "I have," Jake said. "Many times. They killed a lot of good people before we learned how to stop them." Jake moved toward the door, then turned back. "Stay here, Doc. Keep tracking them on your instruments. When I give the signal, shut down everything and hide in the basement. Things are about to get very loud." "What signal?" Jake smiled, and it was not the gentle expression of a farmer. "You will know it when you see it." He vanished into the darkness, leaving Lisa alone with her instruments and 1,000 questions. On her screens, she watched as the mysterious figure resumed his deadly work. But now she knew it was Jake Morrison, the quiet farmer who grew the best wheat in 3 sectors. Except he was not a farmer at all. In the Cathara camp, the commander was growing desperate. His forces were being picked apart by an enemy they could not see, could not catch, could not understand, the human Fane. Jake Morrison moved through the Cathara camp like a predator in his natural environment. Every step was calculated, every movement planned 3 moves ahead. The years of farming had not made him soft. They had given him time to prepare. He crouched behind a damaged transport vehicle, watching 2 Cathara guards patrol past his position. Their heat signatures glowed on the display inside his helmet, and their comm frequencies were mapped on his tactical computer. Jake had been studying Cathara technology for longer than these soldiers had been alive. The first guard fell silently, Jake's combat knife sliding between armor plates with surgical precision. The second guard had time to turn before the neural disruptor sent him into unconsciousness. Jake dragged both bodies into the shadows and moved on to his next target. Lisa watched from the research station, her instruments tracking the impossible dance of death unfolding across the colony. Every few minutes, another Cathara signal would disappear from her screens. Vehicles stopped working. Communication towers went silent. Weapon emplacements powered down without explanation. "How is he doing this?" she whispered to herself. Jake was doing it because Colonel Jacob Morrison had spent 15 years learning how to kill Cathara. He knew their technology better than they did. He knew their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. Most importantly, he knew that they had never faced a human who was prepared for them. The neural disruptor in his hand was human technology, reverse-engineered from captured Cathara equipment and improved. The armor he wore was designed specifically to defeat their sensors. The weapons he carried could punch through their defenses like they were made of paper. But Jake's greatest advantage was not his equipment. It was his patience. For 5 years, he had lived as a simple farmer while secretly preparing for this day. Hidden beneath his fields were weapon caches and supply depots. His irrigation system could be converted to a communications network in minutes. His barn contained enough military hardware to outfit a platoon of Special Forces soldiers. Jake reached his first major target, the Cathara command post. 3 guards stood watch while officers inside coordinated the search for their invisible enemy. Jake smiled grimly as he pulled a small device from his pack. The EMP grenade was nearly silent when it detonated. Every piece of Cathara electronics within 50 meters simply stopped working. Communicators went dead. Weapon sights failed. Even the lights in their helmets flickered out. In the confusion that followed, Jake moved like smoke through the darkness. His combat knife found throats and hearts with lethal precision. The Cathara officers inside the command post died before they understood what was happening. Jake quickly accessed their computer systems, downloading intelligence about their fleet strength and objectives. What he found made his blood run cold. This was not just a slave raid. The Cathara were testing human defenses in preparation for a much larger invasion, but they had made one critical mistake. They had attacked the wrong colony. Jake activated a hidden transmitter buried beneath his farmhouse. The signal would take weeks to reach human military commands, but when it did, the response would be swift and overwhelming. The Cathara might win this battle, but they had just started a war they could not finish. The Cathara commander realized something was wrong when his command post went silent. He sent 3 squads to investigate, but they found only bodies and destroyed equipment. The human phantom had struck at the heart of their operation. "Spread out!" the commander ordered his remaining forces. "Search every building, every vehicle, every pile of debris. This ghost will not escape us." But Jake was not trying to escape. He was just getting started. Hidden throughout the colony were sensors and weapons that Jake had installed over 5 years of careful preparation. As the Cathara search teams spread out, they began walking into carefully planned traps. Motion-activated mines exploded beneath their feet. Automated turrets emerged from concealment to rake their formations with plasma fire. Hidden gas dispensers released clouds of neurotoxin designed specifically for Cathara physiology. Lisa watched in amazement as her instruments showed the systematic destruction of the alien forces. "This is impossible," she breathed. "No one person could set up all of this." She was right. No normal farmer could have done this. But Colonel Jacob Morrison had been one of the Human Defense Corps' most decorated special operations officers. He had fought the Cathara on a dozen worlds, learning their strengths and weaknesses through years of brutal combat. When the war ended and the Cathara retreated to their own space, Jake could have retired to a comfortable position on one of the inner worlds. Instead, he volunteered for the most dangerous assignment possible: deep cover on a frontier colony, ready to serve as humanity's early warning system if the aliens ever returned. Jake reached the detention area where the captured colonists were being held. 63 people chained together in groups, guarded by 12 Cathara soldiers. The guards were nervous now, constantly scanning the darkness for threats they could not see. Jake could have killed the guards easily, but that would have put the prisoners at risk. Instead, he triggered another hidden system: sonic disruptors. Buried beneath the landing area activated, sending out frequencies that disrupted Cathara nervous systems. The guards collapsed in convulsions, their weapons falling from nerveless fingers. The colonists looked up in confusion as a figure emerged from the shadows. Many of them recognized Jake Morrison, but this was not the quiet farmer they knew. This was someone else entirely. "Stay calm," Jake said as he cut their chains with a plasma torch. "Move to the research station on the hill. Dr. Carter will show." "You where to hide, Jake?" Administrator Collins gasped. "How did you do all this? Who are you?" "Someone who should have introduced himself properly years ago," Jake replied. "Now go. This is not over yet." As the freed prisoners made their way toward the research station, Jake returned to his deadly work. The Cathara forces were down to less than half strength, but their commander was adapting to the new situation. The aliens began moving in larger groups, using captured human vehicles as shields. Jake smiled. They were learning, but not fast enough. He made his way to a hidden bunker beneath the colony's water treatment plant. Inside were weapons and equipment that most humans had never seen. Plasma rifles that could punch through starship armor, stealth suits that bent light around the wearer, tactical computers that could coordinate a battle across an entire star system. Jake strapped on a powered exoskeleton that multiplied his strength and speed. He picked up a plasma cannon that normally required a crew of 3 to operate. Most importantly, he activated the final phase of his defensive plan. Throughout the colony, hidden reactors came online. Energy flowed through buried cables to weapon emplacements and shield generators. The peaceful farming community of New Eden revealed its true nature as one of humanity's most sophisticated defensive installations. The Cathara commander watched in growing horror as his tactical situation collapsed. Buildings that had seemed defenseless were suddenly bristling with weapons. The very ground beneath his feet was electrified with defensive networks. The sky above filled with energy shields that blocked any hope of orbital support. "What is this place?" he demanded of his surviving officers. "This is not a farming colony. This is a military fortress." One of his lieutenants consulted a damaged scanner. "Commander, I am reading massive underground installations. This entire valley is built over military bunkers and weapons depots." The commander felt a chill of understanding. "We have been deceived. This was never a raid on defenseless farmers. This was a trap." He was partly right. New Eden was indeed a trap, but not one set specifically for them. It was humanity's insurance policy, a hidden stronghold ready to protect the outer colonies from any threat. And Jake Morrison was its guardian. Jake emerged from the bunker like an avatar of destruction. The powered exoskeleton made him move, faster than any human should be able to move. The plasma cannon in his hands could destroy vehicles with single shots. But his most dangerous weapon was still his mind, shaped by years of combat against the galaxy's most feared predators. The Cathara commander ordered his remaining forces to converge on Jake's position. It was a mistake. Jake had spent 5 years learning every meter of ground in the colony. He knew every hiding place, every angle of fire, every escape route. The battle that followed was less a fight than a masterclass in military tactics. Jake used the terrain like a chess master uses pieces, drawing the aliens into positions where his advantages were overwhelming. Hidden weapon turrets provided covering fire while he moved between positions. Automated systems created diversions that split the enemy forces. One by one, the Cathara soldiers fell. Their superior numbers meant nothing against an enemy who knew exactly where they were at all times. Their advanced weapons were useless against armor designed specifically to defeat them. Lisa watched from the research station as Jake's signal finally appeared on her screens. He was standing in the center of the colony, surrounded by the wreckage of alien equipment and bodies. The Cathara commander approached him alone, his surviving soldiers dead or fled. "You are no farmer," the alien said, his translator rendering, his words in flat, emotionless human speech. "No," Jake replied, pulling off his helmet. "I am Cologne." Jake Morrison stood in the smoking remains of the Cathara command post, but his victory was short-lived. Warning signals flashed on his tactical display as new contacts appeared at the edge of the star system. The aliens had called for reinforcements before their communications went down. 3 heavy cruisers and a battleship, Jake muttered, reading the scanner data. "They're not taking any chances this time." Lisa watched from the research station as Jake transformed before her eyes. Gone was any pretense of being a simple farmer. The man moving through the colony now was a weapon in human form, checking systems and preparing defenses with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. "Colonel Morrison," she called over the comm system he had given her. "Those ships will be here in 6 hours. What can we do against a battleship?" Jake's voice came back calm and professional. "We give them a lesson in why humans don't make good targets. Get everyone to the main bunker beneath the research station. Things are about to get interesting." The hidden bunker beneath the research station was larger than the entire building above it. Lisa led the surviving colonists down metal stairs into a facility that belonged in a military base, not a farming community. Rows of computers lined the walls, their screens showing tactical displays and star charts. Weapon racks held equipment that looked both familiar and alien. "How long has this been here?" Administrator Collins asked, staring at the advanced military hardware. "Since the colony was founded," Jake replied, sealing the blast doors behind them. New Eden was never just a farming settlement. It was an early warning station and defensive position. Every outer colony has something like this, though most people don't know it. Jake moved to the main command console and began activating systems that had been dormant for years. Throughout the colony, hidden weapon emplacements rose. From concealment, energy shields flickered to life around critical installations. Deep beneath the valley floor, fusion reactors came online to power humanity's most advanced defensive technologies. "The crops, the farms, the quiet life," Lisa said, understanding flooding through her. "It was all a cover story." "Partly," Jake admitted. "I really did grow wheat. And I really did want a peaceful life. But I also had a job to do. Protect this sector and watch for signs of alien activity." On the tactical displays, the approaching Cathara fleet was clearly visible. 4 massive ships bristling with weapons, carrying enough firepower to glass an entire planet. Against them stood one man and a defensive installation that most people didn't even know existed. The odds should have been hopeless. "Colonel," Lisa said quietly, "how can we possibly fight that many ships?" Jake smiled, and there was no warmth in the expression. "We don't fight them, Doc. We teach them why attacking humans is a very bad idea." The first lesson began when the Cathara fleet entered the outer system. Hidden sensor arrays that Jake had been maintaining for 5 years locked onto the alien ships and began gathering detailed intelligence. Every weapon, every shield generator, every critical system was mapped and analyzed. The Cathara commander, aboard the battleship, was confident. His scouts had reported a lightly defended farming colony with minimal resistance. Even if there were hidden defenses, 4 heavy warships could overwhelm any installation the humans might have built. He was about to learn that humans were very good at surprises. Jake sat at the command console like a conductor preparing to lead an orchestra. His fingers moved across controls that connected him to weapon systems hidden throughout the star system. Missile batteries concealed in asteroids, automated gun platforms disguised as communication satellites, minefields that looked like routine, shipping debris. Initiating Defensive Protocol 7, Jake announced to the empty command center. Authorization, Morrison Jacob, service number 4471 Delta Alpha. The computers accepted his authorization, and New Eden revealed its true nature. The Cathera fleet entered the inner system expecting to find a defenseless target. Instead, they flew into a carefully prepared killing field. Missiles launched from concealed positions throughout the asteroid belt, their warheads designed specifically to defeat Cathera shields. Hidden gun platforms opened fire with plasma cannons that could punch through battleship armor. The alien commander watched in shock as his escorts came under attack from weapons that shouldn't exist. The lead cruiser took 3 direct hits before. Its captain could even identify the source of the fire. Explosions ripped through its hull as human-designed warheads found critical systems. "Where are these weapons coming from?" the commander demanded. "Our intelligence said this was a farming colony with no military installations." His tactical officer studied the scanner displays in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading weapon signatures from over 50 locations, asteroid bases, satellite platforms, even what appear to be modified cargo containers. The entire system is armed. The Cathara had walked into a trap that had been 5 years in the making." Jake monitored the battle from his command center, coordinating attacks with the precision of someone who had studied Cathara tactics for decades. Every shot was calculated, every target chosen for maximum impact. He was not trying to destroy the alien fleet outright. He was demonstrating humanity's true defensive capabilities. The first Cathera cruiser died when a salvo of antimatter torpedoes overwhelmed its shields. The second lasted longer, but concentrated fire from 3 different directions eventually cracked its armor and set off internal explosions. The third tried to retreat, but Jake had planned for that too. Minefields activated throughout the system, cutting off escape routes and forcing the aliens into predetermined firing zones. Lisa watched the tactical display in amazement. "How is this possible? You're fighting an entire fleet by yourself." "Not by myself," Jake replied, his hands never stopping their work at the controls. "Every human colony in this sector contributes to the defensive network. Hidden bases, automated weapons, early warning systems. We learned from the first Cathara War that fighting them ship to ship was a losing proposition." The surviving Cathara battleship made a desperate run toward New Eden, hoping to destroy the source of the attacks. Its massive guns opened fire on the planet's surface, sending plasma bolts that could level cities. They struck energy shields that had been built to withstand exactly that kind of attack. Jake had spent 5 years not just maintaining his cover as a farmer, but upgrading and expanding the colony's defenses. The shield generators hidden beneath his wheat fields could absorb the full firepower of a Cathara battleship and ask for more. "Shield strength at 85%, Jake reported calmly. "More than enough to handle their main guns." The Cathara commander realized he was trapped. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons he couldn't locate, let alone fight effectively. The planet he had come to raid was protected by defenses that made his own battleship look primitive. For the first time in his military career, he considered surrender. Jake had other plans. "Activating the Prometheus array," he announced, keying in another authorization code. Deep beneath New Eden's surface, machinery that had been waiting patiently for 5 years came to life. A weapon system based on captured Cathara technology, improved with human engineering, and powered by fusion reactors that could light up a small moon. The Prometheus array fired once. The Cathara battleship simply ceased to exist. Where a kilometer-long warship had been threatening the colony, there was now only empty space and slowly expanding clouds of ionized particles. Lisa stared at the tactical display in shock. What just happened? Humanity's answer to Cathara aggression, Jake said quietly. We studied their technology, learned from their tactics, and built something better. The Prometheus array uses their own energy weapons against them, amplified beyond anything their shields can handle. The silence in the command center was broken only by the soft hum of computers and life support systems. Outside, New Eden looked like a peaceful farming colony again. But now Lisa knew the truth. Humanity's outer colonies weren't defenseless settlements waiting to be raided. They were fortresses, armed with weapons that could destroy fleets and protected by energy shields that could stop battleships. More importantly, they were staffed by people like Jake Morrison, soldiers who had traded their uniforms for farming clothes but never forgotten how to fight. How many colonies have installations like this? Lisa asked. All of them, Jake replied. Every human settlement beyond the inner worlds has defensive capabilities that would surprise you. The Cathara think they're raiding helpless farmers and miners. They're actually attacking some of the most heavily fortified positions in the galaxy. Jake began shutting down the weapon systems, returning them to standby mode. The immediate threat was over, but he knew others would come. Word of this battle would spread throughout Cathara space, and they would want revenge. Let them come, Jake thought. Humanity had been preparing for this war longer than the aliens realized. What happens now? Lisa asked. Jake looked at her, and for a moment she saw the farmer again, tired and peaceful. Then the soldier returned. Now we send a message to the Cathara High Command, he said. We tell them that humanity isn't the easy target they thought we were. We tell them that every colony they attack will cost them more ships than they can afford to lose. And if they don't leave, 3 days after the battle, Jake Morrison stood in his wheat fields again. The crops had survived the fighting, protected by energy shields that had been disguised as irrigation equipment. To anyone watching from space, New Eden looked like a peaceful farming colony that had somehow survived an alien attack through luck and good hiding places. The truth was far different. Lisa walked between the rows of wheat, still trying to understand everything she had witnessed. The quiet farmer she had grown to know was also Colonel Jacob Morrison, one of humanity's most decorated special operations officers. The simple farming equipment was actually sophisticated military hardware. The entire colony was a fortress that could destroy fleets. How do you do it? She asked Jake as he checked his crops for damage. How do you go back to farming after something like that? Jake tested a wheat stalk between his fingers, checking its ripeness. Same way I went from being a soldier to being a farmer in the first place. You do what needs to be done. But doesn't it feel strange? Pretending to be someone you're not? Jake was quiet for a moment, looking across his fields toward the hills, where hidden weapon batteries had returned to their concealed positions. I'm not pretending, Doc. I really am a farmer. I really do grow wheat and fix machines and enjoy quiet evenings on my porch. But I'm also a soldier, and sometimes soldiers have to fight. The remains of the Cathara fleet had been cleared away by automated systems. Their wreckage would be studied by human military scientists, adding to the vast database of alien technology that had been growing since the first contact wars. Nothing would be wasted. Every piece of equipment, every tactical recording, every intelligence file would be analyzed and used to improve humanity's defenses. Jake's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. The display showed the seal of Human Defense Command, transmitted across space through the same hidden network that had carried his warning 3 days ago. "Colonel Morrison?" The voice belonged to Admiral Chen, commander of the Outer Defense Forces. "Congratulations on a successful engagement. Your tactical data has been distributed to all colonies in the sector." "Thank you, Admiral," Jake replied, formally. "What's the situation with other Cathara forces?" "They're pulling back from human space. Your demonstration at New Eden has convinced them that raiding our colonies is no longer profitable. Intelligence estimates they've lost nearly 40% of their raiding fleet strength in the past month." Jake nodded. Other colonies had fought similar battles, each one teaching the aliens that humanity was not the easy target they had expected. The network of hidden defenses was working exactly as planned. "What are your orders, sir?" "Continue your current assignment, Colonel. Maintain your cover and monitor the sector. Command believes the Cathara will attempt larger-scale operations in the future, and we need our early warning systems in place." "Understood. Morrison out." Jake closed the communicator and went back to checking his wheat. Lisa watched him with new understanding. This was not a man pretending to be a farmer while secretly being a soldier. This was someone who had found a way to be both, accepting the responsibilities that came with each role. "The other colonists don't know, do they?" Lisa asked. "About what you really are?" "Some suspect," Jake said. Administrator Collins figured it out after the battle. A few others have started asking better questions, but most of them just want to go back to their normal lives. "And you let them?" "It's what I'm here to protect," Jake said simply. "Their right to live normal lives without worrying about alien invasions and galactic politics. They shouldn't have to know about hidden weapons and defensive networks. That's my job." Over the following weeks, life in New Eden slowly returned to normal. The colonists rebuilt what had been damaged, buried their dead, and tried to forget the terror of the Cathara attack. Children played in the streets again. Farmers tended their crops. Scientists like Lisa returned to their research. But Lisa could not forget what she had learned. She found herself noticing things that had been invisible before. The way certain colonists moved with military precision. The fact that some of the farming equipment was far more sophisticated than it needed to be. The electromagnetic readings she had detected, which she now knew were communications from the defensive network. "How many of you are there?" she asked Jake one evening as they sat on his porch, watching the twin suns set over the valley. "Enough," Jake said. "Every human colony has people like me. Some are farmers, some are miners, some run shops or teach, school or work in research stations, but they all have another job too. Protecting humanity? Protecting the right to live freely," Jake corrected. "The Cathara want to turn us into slaves. Other species want to exploit our resources or claim our territory. We have to show them that humans aren't victims waiting to be conquered." Lisa thought about that for a while. "Is that why you chose farming? As a cover identity?" Jake smiled, and this time it was the genuine expression of the man she had first met. "Actually, I chose farming because I like it. Growing things, working with my hands, being connected to the land. The military benefits were secondary." "So you really are a farmer?" "I really am a farmer," Jake agreed. "And I really am a soldier. And I really do make the best coffee in 3 sectors." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell over New Eden. In the distance, Lisa could see lights in the windows of other farmhouses, where people were settling down for another peaceful evening. They didn't know that their safety was protected by weapons that could destroy battleships, or that their quiet neighbor was one of the galaxy's most dangerous warriors. They didn't need to know. A month later, Lisa's research project was completed. Her studies of local plant genetics had produced several promising results that would benefit agriculture throughout human space. As she prepared to leave New Eden for her next assignment, she realized how much the place had changed her understanding of the galaxy. "I'll miss this," she told Jake as they walked through his wheat fields one last time. The quiet, the simplicity, the sense of safety. "It will still be here when you come back," Jake said. "Places like New Eden don't change much." Lisa laughed. "Are you kidding? This place changed everything for me. I used to think the outer colonies were helpless settlements that survived by luck and the protection of distant fleets. Now I know the truth." "What truth is that?" "That humanity's real strength isn't in our battleships or space stations. It's in people like you. Soldiers who become farmers but stay ready to fight. Scientists who study plants but also monitor enemy communications. Colonists who build homes but also build fortresses." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "We learned something important during the first wars with the Kithara. Military might alone isn't enough to protect a civilization. You need people who are willing to live on the frontier, to make themselves targets, to stand between the darkness and the light. And you volunteered for that?" "We all did," Jake said. "Every person on every outer colony made the same choice. We could have stayed safe in the inner worlds, but someone had to be the first line of defense." The supply ship that would take Lisa to her next assignment arrived right on schedule. As she gathered her belongings, Jake helped carry her equipment to the landing pad. "Will you tell people," he asked, "about what you learned here?" Lisa considered the question carefully. "I'll tell them that the outer colonies are safer than they appear, that farmers and miners and shopkeepers are more capable than anyone realizes, that humanity has found a way to be both peaceful and strong. That's all anyone needs to know," Jake agreed. As the ship lifted off, carrying Lisa away from New Eden, she looked down at the peaceful valley one last time. Wheat fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with farm buildings and irrigation equipment. It looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, a quiet agricultural settlement where people grew food and lived simple lives. But now she knew the secret that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Humanity's outer colonies weren't helpless targets waiting to be conquered. They were fortresses, staffed by warriors who had chosen to beat their swords into plowshares, but who could forge them back into weapons whenever the need arose. Jake Morrison returned to his daily routine of tending crops and maintaining equipment. To any observer, he was simply a farmer going about his work, but buried beneath his fields were weapon systems that could destroy fleets. Hidden in his barn were communications arrays that connected him to the largest military network in human space, and in his hands, calloused from years of honest work, was the strength to protect everything he had helped to build. The Kithara would return someday, probably with larger fleets and better tactics. Other alien species would test humanity's defenses, looking for weaknesses to exploit. Threats would emerge from the dark spaces between stars, as they always had and always would. But they would find the same thing that the Kithara had found at New Eden. Humans who looked like easy targets but fought like legends. Farmers who were also soldiers, miners who were also engineers, shopkeepers who were also spies. People who had chosen to live on the frontier, not because they were running from civilization, but because they were protecting it. Jake Morrison finished checking his irrigation system and walked back toward his farmhouse as the twin suns set over the valley. Tomorrow, he would plant new